loving on someone else, outside of myself, right? But then we circle it back to affirmations, right? Me loving myself, right? And the only way in which you can love yourself is if you sit with yourself and you go within. I've been hurting, but with purpose. I've been working on myself. I've been looking in the mirror like queen, ain't nobody else. Better than you, hotter than you, better than you, hotter than you, better than you, hotter than you. Girl, you top two, and you not two. Ken folk, what is good? It's your girl Ken, and I welcome you to another episode of the Keys and Seeds podcast. This is episode 37, part 3 of me specifically discussing my singles, as I have been discussing my discography as a whole. And I'm excited to bring things to the present day, at least with the singles, right? We're going to get into the EPs and the projects that I've been releasing up to this point. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this conversation specifically because I did recently drop a single. It's titled Affirmations, and we're going to get into affirmations specifically in this episode. But if you have not tuned into my latest single, Affirmations, please make sure you go do that. And make sure you tap in with all of my songs if you are not familiar with all of my songs, or if you are not familiar with any of my music. I'm assuming if you're here, you're somewhat tapped in with me in the fact that I make music. But if you are not already tapped in, if you're new here, if you're a stranger, hey, you're no longer a stranger. You're a part of the family. I said kin folk, so I'm talking to you too. But yeah, so all of my music is not on Apple, Spotify. There's some things here and there that's not released on the rest of these streaming platforms that we all stream our music on. However, everything that I have ever released, it is on my Bandcamp at kyndlmusic.bandcamp.com. The information will be in the description. And as I've said before, the reason why certain releases are just not on all DSPs is because I am growing and evolving as an artist. And as I am on this journey, I am wanting to have conversations around the music that I've been releasing up to this point, as I also have a podcast. And two, I want some exclusivity as well. And so with Bandcamp, that is the best way you can support me as an independent artist. It's a pay what you want platform. Leave a donation and you get the download for the song. So even if I do ever delete anything off of an Apple, a Spotify, you got the song on your computer once you leave a donation for it. So shout out to everyone who has tapped in with the Bandcamp. I know a few of you already have. You're already familiar with Bandcamp. And so, again, I thank you. I appreciate you. And I thank and praise, not praise, child, that's the church in me. I just want to thank and praise God, Thank you to everyone who has not only already tapped in with the Bandcamp, but tapped in with the pod as it relates to following and subscribing and leaving reviews and sharing and liking and all of that. All of those good things, right? And last but not least, before we jump into the conversation of this episode, we are closing out on quarter 1 of the year. And so I just want to give some encouragement to you all. The weather is starting to get warmer depending on where you are. It probably already been warm, but I stay in the Midwest. It's been feeling a little bit warm as of lately, so I feel like spring is around the corner. It definitely is. And yeah, so regardless of how your year might have started off, I just want to give you some encouragement as we are slowly but surely, quickly, really approaching quarter 2. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get into episode 37. Yeah. Okay, so in this episode, we are going to be discussing the spring pack, which included Oasis and SOS. We're going to be talking about Moonlight, Indy 500, and my latest single, Affirmations, as I mentioned before. And to give background context, all but Affirmations was released in 2023. And to give context as to where I was in life at that point in time, 2023 was a very traumatic year for me. But 2023 also was a year of a major transition in my life. As I've mentioned plenty of times before, I spent 2 years of my time in Atlanta, and that was between 2021 and 2023. And so 2023 was the year where half the year, really majority of the year, I moved back here to Indy in September of 2023. And so up until September, as I said, right, from January to September, but obviously before January, right, September of 2021 to September of 2023. That's crazy. September, and my birth month is September. So yeah, it's just crazy how God orchestrated that. From September of 2021 to September of 2023, I was in Atlanta, and Atlanta was like my time of moving away from home and learning more about myself, but realizing I don't know myself as well as I thought that I did up until that point. And so yeah, long story short, I had to move back to Indy because real life was lifing, and I made a bunch of decisions that was not wise, but you live and you learn. And so I think Atlanta was the live and you learn season of my life that I needed in order to have the character development that I needed as an adult. This year I will be 27, and so you all do the math on how old I was when I moved and how old I was when I moved back. And so that was 2023. It's now 2025. But yeah, so as I said, that was a very like traumatic time of my life, just because I went through a whole lot. Just still naive in a lot of ways, and it was just a bunch of maturing that I had to go through. And so I went through a lot of situations that could have been avoided, really. And they had a negative effect on my mental. And so I say all of that to say, creatively in 2023, if you listen to these songs, right, I'm very melodic. I'm very, sing-songy, right? And I've mentioned before that although I'm primarily known as a rapper, as an MC, I'm also a singer. I love to sing, and from the very beginning, I've incorporated harmonies and, vocals and, things of that such, right? I just feel as if majority of my music have been more rap leaning, right? But I feel like at this point, I somewhat consciously knew that I wanted to start singing more, and I had been saying like I want to sing more. Like I feel most in my bag when I'm able to both sing and rap on the same song, right? But as of recently, I've been discovering I really think that my sound is more of a melodic rap, like really having, bars, showing up on, the beats that I choose, but it's primarily, wrapped in a package of harmonies and right. Like I really think that's me. And so around that time, I feel like I was finding, that transition of, okay, like this is my sound, right? But also too, to go back to the context that I provided as to where I was in life at that point in time, right? Because of all of the traumatic things that I was going through and, experiencing, at that time, like internally, spiritually, the way in which I wanted to express myself creatively was through me just singing, through me just vibing, right? Like, I feel more free when I'm singing, but I really enjoy rapping because I get to push my pen and I get to, bring the energy and the delivery that, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes too, like the way in which I'm feeling internally is like, like, you feel me? Like, nah, I'm finna get on here and rap, but like a lot of times too, the way in which I'm feeling internally is like, that's just not me right now, And so with Spring Pack, specifically with Oasis and SOS, and I love those songs so much, specifically SOS, right? Like, with Spring Pack as a whole, right, that came from a place of, as I said, like, I just want to sing. I just want to feel safe and feel comfortable. And at that time, like, emotionally, spiritually, like, internally, like, I didn't feel safe. And internally, I was crying out for help creatively, right? And that was what came out of that. And so when you listen to, the lyrics of Oasis, SOS, right? Like, it's a very, beautiful, melodic song sonically. But if you really pay attention to the lyrics, right? Like, I'm speaking on the fact that this environment, this space that I'm referring to in Oasis specifically, right? Like, I'm speaking on the topic, the theme of feeling safe in a particular environment. And the inspiration behind that was, at that time, that's when I started to really transition into being more intentional about my walk and my relationship with God. And around that time, although it was a lot of chaos taking place, right? Like, the peace and the safety that I found was within the presence of God. And so I would say me growing in my relationship with God at that point in time was the inspo for the song. But the song inspo also came from a place of, right now, I don't feel safe. And I'm yearning, if you will, for a space, an environment where I do feel safe. Right. And so just creatively as well, that's how Oasis came about. Right. Like, me dreaming, yearning of, a space, an environment where I feel safe, but also too, I'm speaking about the fact that I'm finding that safety within the presence of God. And I just didn't explicitly say that in the song, but that's essentially where Oasis came from. And then SOS, right? Like, we all have heard the term SOS, and I am essentially, as I said before, crying out for help. And I'm gonna look over at my notes. So if you see me looking over, I'm looking at these notes that I wrote on my whiteboard over here. And for Spring Pack specifically, I wrote safety, peace, grace, and pacing. I really felt like those were words that capture just the overall, like, sound and theme of that release, right? And I said, take care of your soul, right? The thing about us creatives, right? We create from a very spiritual place, right? Creating is a very spiritual act. And whether you're creating music, creating anything, or just simply showing up in this world in the ways in which you choose to show up in this world, I want to say the message behind this, the takeaway, if you will, of Spring Pack specifically is, if you are not okay internally, nothing else around you will be okay, right? But also too, as I said, creating is a very spiritual, process. So for me specifically, just speaking for me as an artist, speaking on my art, right? Because that's what we're currently doing. I can only create from a place that is truly reflective of where I currently am as I'm creating that music. And so, again, it was springtime when I came across those beats, and what I felt led to write was Oasis and SOS, which is what ended up being a double single release, and I titled it Spring Pack. And so that's Spring Pack, and I love Spring Pack, and I'm probably gonna promote it more again as it's about to be spring. So yeah. Okay, so the next song is Moonlight, and when I speak on the fact that the time period of my life then was a very traumatic time for me, part of the reason why it was traumatic for me is because I was finally trying to remove myself from a situationship that I was in. And what I mean by finally is I tried to walk away from this individual more than once. And long story short, child, the situation ended up in me. It resulted in me filing a protection order. Let's just say that, right? But Moonlight, essentially, like the inspo behind that was, so Moonlight as a word, right? Me titling it Moonlight, in my mind, I use that as a metaphor for deception, right? Like it's not sunlight, but it's moonlight, right? And you know how like sometimes when you driving around, right, and like the moon is out and it looks like the moon is like following your car, right? Like I just remember as a kid, like that was just something that always stuck with me, or I was just always like just fascinated with, you know, the moon and the fact that the moon looks one way when you're actually looking at it, but then if you try to take a picture of it, it's something different, right? And so I used the word moonlight and the concept of moonlight as a metaphor, but essentially with this song, right, like if you listening to it, me personally, I'm a fan of my own music, right? Like even though I feel like a lot of my music is very heavy because my music is quite literally my outlet, for the most part though, like my music is a vibe, right? And literally as I'm saying this, Moonlight specifically is not a single that I re-uploaded to an Apple, to a Spotify when I was in the process of re-uploading my music. And I've spoken on the fact in a previous episode that I took everything off streaming and then I re-uploaded select things. Moonlight is a single that I did not re-release, but as I was listening to it, like gathering my notes, I'm like, Moonlight is really a vibe. Like I was tweaking, not re-uploading that. And so it's gonna be re-uploaded after I record this. Facts. Moonlight is a vibe, bro. Like as far as like, you know, just listening to it sonically, but if you're really listening to the lyrics, like the notes that I wrote for it is toxicity feels good, but it's a cycle, right? Like if you're not really paying attention to the music, I mean to the lyrics, and you're just listening to the music, I feel like it's more of like a, okay, yeah, wait till I get the hey, right? But like when you really listening to it, I'm like, this is a toxic cycle, right? And I'm just saying, like, just wait until I get the mood right. Wait until just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm coming from a place of, I'm really trying to be off you, but you keep pulling me back into this cycle. And every time I find myself pulled back into this cycle, I'm finding myself in a place of thinking like, okay, well, like, just wait until I get this part of, you know, the relationship right, or wait until, you know, this fixes, and right. And a lot of the like inner conflict that I was having during that time of me being in a situationship, for the longest I thought that it was me. yes, it was me as far as, me being in a situation that I shouldn't have been in, right? But I'm thinking like the reason why this is not working is because it's me, right? Like I was the one taking all the accountability for why the relationship was not working when really we just weren't compatible and it was toxic. And arguably the toxicity was more on the end of the other person. I was the one who was very just codependent, very, understanding and right, just self-sacrificing essentially. And I wrote in my notes, when you pay attention to the lyrics, right, like I'm exposing the fact that I'm a recovering codependent, but also letting it be known that once I'm off you though, I'm off you. I remember I said in the song, I said something along the lines of holding a grudge, but you wanting me off that. You say I'm doing too much, but when I start to do little, it's hard to get in touch, right? Like I'm speaking on the fact that like when I care, like I really care, and I'm, you know what I mean? Like I'm really throwing myself into a situation that might not even be healthy. But once I feel like I'm completely drained and I have nothing else to give, and I move in a way where I'm like, you know what? No, I'm off this. I'm cool. Know that like that's also coming from a place of the way in which I was 100% being all in, I'm 100% being all out too. And so I'm the type of person, it's very hard for me to let people go. And when I want to make something work, like I really will try, like will be scratching my head like all throughout the night. Like, okay, well maybe I should, approach it this way, right? Like I really feel like I'm a great person to be in a relationship with. But again, if y'all just not compatible, and you just have to get to a place of knowing when to walk away. And that was the inspiration behind that song, and I pray that that was some advice for someone out there who might be dealing with a toxic situation, in a situation, anything along those lines. Don't be fooled, don't be deceived. All right, okay. The next song that I dropped after Moonlight was Indy 500, which is another relationship, love, romantic, right, type of song and theme. And me going that route for the following single, it wasn't intentional. That was just a song that I ended up creating after Moonlight that I absolutely loved. And I'm from Indianapolis. I know the Indy 500 is a big thing here, and I've never been. I told myself, I'm like, if I have a song called the Indy 500 and I'm from Indianapolis, like, girl, like at some point you should be experiencing the Indy 500, right? Like, why you ain't never been? I don't know. I also don't think that is my thing, but long story short, I've always like low-key wanted a song called Indy 500. It's a few artists in the city who has a song called Indy 500, and this is mine. Indy 500 is featuring my dog Kids of the Sky, if you will, but his name is simply just Kid. On streaming, we met through my girl Fee, who's a stylist. I had to stop and think. I'm like, do I remember how me and Kid met? It's been a minute, but yeah, that's family. And long story short, when I created this song, the inspiration behind it was, I don't know, like when I heard the beat, the chorus came first, the hook came first, and of course we're gonna get into the rest of my discography. But if you are familiar with Who Do You Love on my first project, I view Who Do You Love and Indy 500 as cousins, if you will, right? I remember when I dropped Who Do You Love, and this is a little bit off topic but on topic. When I dropped Who Do You Love, everybody was like, you need to start making more love songs. And y'all, I don't have too many like romantic love and like relationship experience to speak on or, draw from in order to create, those type of songs. And so for the longest, I just never created another song that was, within that world. But then Moonlight came about, and then Indy 500 came about. And I love Indy 500 because I feel like it's the opposite coin of a Moonlight. Moonlight is more toxic. It's more so a situationship type of song. Indy 500, I'm letting it be known, I ain't with all the red flags, right? Like, thinking about, the concept of, racing and, flags. I'm like, I'm past looking over the red flags, right? Like, at this point, if we locked in, know that I'm truly locked in with you. So I'm gonna need you to know that you are locked in with me. Right? And so it's essentially my way of providing, reassurance to a man and letting him know, like, nah, like, it's you. You in first place. It ain't nobody else. And I'm the type of person too, like, I don't allow too many people to get close to me anyways. And so if I'm rocking with you, know I'm really rocking with you. Okay. But yeah, so when I created this song, that was the space that it was coming from, right? I was past the situationship that I was just speaking on, and I was just coming from a place of, okay, moving on though, right? Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, F love, right? Like, no, like, I'm still a lover girl. Like, I want that for me. I want to be in love with someone who also loves me. And so, I don't know, I kind of just was coming from a place of, just imagining, right? Like, once I do find that, right, now that I'm past the situationship, like, how would I come? What's the energy? And just thinking about that, coming from that space, Indy 500 came about. And after I wrote everything but the second verse, right, like, I left the second verse open, and I'm like, I know I want a male, perspective on this. I want a male, just response, energy complimenting this. And I absolutely love what Kid did. Like, I feel like the song is very, just fun and playful, and I feel like that's the sound and, vibe, the brand that Kid has as an artist. At least that's what I get, from his artistry. And I just love what he added and how he complimented the record. And yeah, I was looking back over on my notes. I'm like, did I forget anything? I mentioned in the song, I'm like, I know your last B word left you hurt, right? Like, I'm speaking on the X, but I said the B word. I am not a woman that wants to refer to other women or myself as a female dog. And so I don't know if I've referred to myself as a B word in any of my past songs, or if I've like used that in past songs. But I did want to point that out and say that, like, today, absolutely not, right? Like, I grew up on Trina. Trina was my very first favorite rapper. Fun fact, love me some Trina. The baddest B, yeah, right? But, like, I do believe that, us as women, we need to be having, a little bit more respect for ourselves. And yeah, so I just wanted to say today, I wouldn't still refer to myself as a B word, or, refer to other women as a B word. But, yeah. And then too, like, as far as like the song as a whole, like, when I listen to it today, I'm like, I really wish I would have added maybe like some type of like racing skit, like some type of skit, either like at the beginning or the end, or like just some type of like, race car sound effect or something like just more like ambiance related to the fact that the song is called Indy 500. I feel like the song definitely could have, benefited from more as far as, something like that. But that's why I'm excited to be creatively going into my music to come from a place of even more intention. So yeah, that's Indy 500. Shout out to Kid. And last, but certainly not least, we got my girl. You know it's your girl. You know that Keke Palmer meme. I love me some Keke Palmer. Anyways, Affirmations is the latest single that I dropped. And I actually did a episode about affirmations specifically. And so you should go and refer back to that if you want me to do a deeper dive into affirmations. I don't want to repeat anything that is in that episode when you guys can go back and tune into that if you haven't already. But today, as it is, I dropped this single in September. So October, November, December, January, February. It's now going on 6 months since I dropped Affirmations. And I am so proud of myself for that single. It's 100% clean. I wrote that song for myself, like literally me just loving on myself, right? And I'm proud of that single because it was me intentionally embracing the fact that I know that I want to be more melodic and, sing more and, be softer, more feminine, if you will, with my sound, with my music. And I think for the people who primarily know me as this, this barred up, right, MC, femc, right, because a lot of people, like, they do view me through that lens of, like, nah, I can't really be rapping, right? Like, I have the fans that, like, really love when I rap, and then I have, the supporters, not to call y'all fans, right? Like, I mean, it's a word, right? But, like, I don't just view y'all as fans, right? Like, I appreciate the people who support me, right? Y'all know what I mean. There's some people who support, the fact, like, first of all, they support me, period, right? But I know that there are people who really prefer me rapping. And then there are people who are like, nah, we really want you to sing more, right? And so sometimes, like, internally as an artist, you can feel like, just a little nervous about, embracing more of another side of yourself that you feel like you haven't been showing just as much as you've been showing, the other part, the other half of you, right? And so Affirmations was my attempt of truly letting it be known that, like, this is the direction that I truly want to move into as far as, just being more melodic with my sound. And it truly warms my heart that the reception of it has been so positive. Literally everyone has been telling me, you need to be singing more. You need to start singing more. Like, the way in which I have been affirmed in that way without me even asking for that or looking for that, right? It truly warms my heart because I've mentioned before that when I first started to release music, right? Like, I truly was releasing music coming from a place of, I love making music. But then once the validation started to come, I felt as if I was chasing it because I still was finding who I was as a person, separate of me being an artist. And so I feel like I kind of, lost my way and was, lost in the sauce a little bit. But Affirmations is me coming back to myself, me really embracing the type of artist that I now see and view myself as. And I think that I truly am, right? Like, I've been releasing music since 2018, right? Like, of course, there's going to be songs and, moments where I just want to rap. You feel me? But, like, my point is, at this point, I'm more sure of who I am, not only as an individual, but as an artist. And, again, Affirmations was just my attempt of teasing and, like, warming my audience up to the fact that I really believe that this is my sound. This is the direction that I want to go in, like, it's not the super, bar heavy, type of songs that y'all have heard from me, in the past, but I am still rapping on it and I am still, you feel me, talking that talk. And yeah, just the way in which it was embraced, the way in which people have been expressing to me that they love the song, it truly warms my heart. And not only do I have a music video for it on the way, but I have a lyric video for it as well. And again, just bringing things to the present day. Like, I am so excited about this new chapter, this new era of me being an artist, me being a creative. I'm just so excited, right? Like, as far as like me learning how to record myself, so that can be, more ideal for, my creative process. Up to this point, I've been booking studio time, right? And so a lot of times too, y'all only hear music when y'all hear music based on when I'm able to get into the studio and have somebody else record me, right? But I'm now learning how to record myself. I feel more comfortable, recording where I am, just at the crib, just getting ideas off as they come to me versus, waiting to book studio time. And, now I'm on a time crunch because I'm paying for the studio time, right? Like, knowing that, as I'm listening to my lyrics and as I'm, listening to my music, right? Like, hearing, just the different ways in which I can be more clever with my lyrics, being more intentional, having more integrity, right? Recognizing, the responsibility that I have as an artist who's also a follower of Christ, right? Just being more mindful about, just the lyrical content as I'm listening to things musically, sonically, right? Like, hearing like my songs can sound more full, adding more layers. And I'm just so excited about, just creating just more intentionally now, right? Like, I have more confidence in who I am and what it is that I'm doing. And I'm just so excited to just share that with you all. And I pray that you all just continue to follow me on this journey. At times, I want to hide and not be on social media. And so sometimes I slack with, the content and, just being more creative in the ways in which I push and promote myself. But we're going to do better with that as well. Like, I'm excited about, just the different ways in which I can just be more creative, just with my content too. And so I'm so excited, man. If you're here, I love you. I thank you for tuning in. I pray that you took away something that I shared in this episode. I think the most important thing that I had to share in this episode would be, take care of your soul. Take care of who you are on the inner, right? With Spring Pack, I was speaking on, how I felt, spiritually, internally, right? Moonlight, that was inspired by a situationship, right? Like Indy 500. Yes, that's coming from a place of me, loving on someone else, outside of myself, right? But then we circle it back to Affirmations, right? Me loving myself, right? And the only way in which you can love yourself is if you sit with yourself and you go within. And that's the path, that's the journey that I've been on as of recently, in therapy, growing closer to God. And that's truly all I have. I am full. I'm thankful. I'm grateful for every artist who has collaborated with me, all of you who have been supporting. And again, I'm excited, and I pray and hope that you guys are just as excited. New music is coming soon. More content is coming soon. And yeah. I will see you guys in the next episode, and we will be finally jumping into my projects. So we gonna have even more to talk about. Stay tuned. I love y'all. Peace.